a weekend artist. And today it is the pleasure to introduce with my classmates and I an artist who has made history, Grant Wood. Grant Wood's paintings are a heritage left us by a man who found inspiration in the simple aspects of American life. His portraits, his landscapes, are indelible tracings of the American scene, viewed sometimes with a critical eye, but always reflecting his deep understanding for his homeland and his affection for it. Hello, Leah. Hello, Lucas.
Hello. Hi,
Could you tell us more about Grant Wood?
Of course.
Yes.
Grant Wood is one of the most famous artists of the 20th century. His masterpiece is American Gothic, which we are going to present a little bit later. He was born in a farm in Iowa in 1892, and his father died when he was only 11 years old. Grant Wood was mainly a self-taught artist. However, after high school, he went to Minneapolis to do a summer course at the Minneapolis Art Institute, so in 1910. 3 years later, he went to Chicago, where he worked as a silversmith by day, and he took painting, sketching, and sculpture classes by night at the Art Institute of Chicago. Between 1920 and 1928, he went several times to Europe, where he admired the realism of Van Eyck, Albrecht Dürer, and Hans Holbein. He was highly influenced by Flemish painting and German Renaissance art of the 15th and 19th and 16th century, and the stylized precision of the new objectivity movement of the 20th century. However, he had a bad impression of Europeans, as he thought that they didn't think there could be art from the United States because it was a state that was too new and they didn't have a really deep culture as France, Italy, or Germany had at that time. When he went back to America, he sustained himself as an interior designer by day and worked as an artist in his free time. He was one of the leaders of the regionalism art movement that pictured the hard work in America and showed the proudness of those hardworking Americans. And it was in the 30s, so that was the time when the crisis was really strong, and those hard-working Americans were the ones to actually live through that fight. He died at the age 49, which was really young. He died of liver cancer in 1942. How was his work reviewed? He received many negative reviews in the 50s. He was seen as too populist and not as a romantic painter as Cézanne, for example. He once said that he had his biggest moments of inspirations when he was milking a cow, so that says it all. However, in the 70s, his reputation rose again, and as we now know, he's seen as one of the greatest American painters. His work hang in the Metropolitan Museum of New York, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Smithsonian Art Museum, to only name a few.
Okay, so now let's talk about one of his most famous painting, American Gothic, that he created in 1930. It became an icon of a nation because it has to come to represent America and Middle America. Wood explained that the two characters were a father and his daughter, but we know that the two models were his dentist and his sister. So it's a little bit funny to know that anecdote. And when you are looking at this painting, if you're a city person, you think he's mocking the people who live in the Middle West. But if you are from the Middle West, you are thinking that Wood wants to underline the lifestyle of the Middle West, but also to show all the values that American people can share and can have, and what are their life, and how they are living, and what are their works. There is on this painting there is a farmer with his daughter standing in front of their simple farmhouse. There is a sense of hardworking, practical people, a kind of conservative aspect of America. There is something archaic here because, you know, we are in 1930, we are in an industrial area, and ground truth shows to paint two people, two farmers in front of a traditional farmhouse. So it's a little bit strange, and we are yes, it's a little bit archaic. This is 1930, and the United States of America is an intensely industrial culture, and even by Iowa standards, this painting is a very archaic image. But the most important thing about this painting is the confrontation with these figures. We know that their faces are about to change, especially the father's one, and his daughter looks off at something we can't see, something outside of the space of the painting. So, like, if they like something is happening outside of the painting. Moreover, this painting says something about Grant Wood himself, because he grew up on a really remote farm in a remote part of Iowa with his two brothers and sister. So it's a little bit his life. And in this painting we see the influence of Northern European style, especially in the face of the male figure, where we have almost a map of this man's face with every wrinkle. The rest of the painting has a sense of geometry. This is both real and symbolic. And now, if you think about the political situation in this period, the fascists just begin to take power, and there is an important political ideology that goes with that, which is often speaking of going back to a kind of rural, primitive experience. So some have looked at this painting and have seen a kind of echo of anti-internationalism. You know, just like if all the people wanted to turn back time and to just work like in the past, work in the farm, and don't want to share their works all around the world with all different nationalities and all different people. So, but maybe it's a way to show that the best way to earn money at this period and the best way to earn a living was to turn back to practical work, turn back to where you come from and where where you were born, with all your family, your friends, and people you know. And yes, it's a way to say, okay, guys, let's pay attention to all the problems around the world. Let's pay attention to Great Depression and to the extremist political parties in Europe, and maybe we can be happy just in our towns with our activities and with our relatives. So yes, it's I think it's a way to celebrate the Middle West. It's a way to celebrate the people who live in the Middle West, and even if their faces aren't really happy, because the man doesn't seem really happy, he seems a little bit bored, and his daughter seems to look out, to look away out of this painting, like if she was dreaming of something and she wanted to escape of this place. Yes, maybe we can have also this interpretation, but I think that he wants to show that this is a life at that period in the Middle West.
Daughters of Revolution, 1932. In 1927, Wood was commissioned to create a stained glass window in Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Unhappy with the quality of domestic glass sources, he used glass made in Germany. The local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, complained about the use of a German source for a World War I memorial, as Germany had been an enemy of the US in that war. And so the Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, is a lineage-based membership service organization for women who are directly descended from a person involved in the United States efforts towards independence. It's a non-profit group, and they work to promote historic preservation, education, and patriotism. So, they complained about the use of a German source for a World War I memorial, and they expressed a lingering anti-German sentiment in the society, and other people in Cedar Rapids also protested the German source, and as a result, the window was not dedicated until 1955. Wood was said to have described the DAR as those Tory girls. A Tory based on a British version of traditionalism and conservatism, which upholds the supremacy of social order as it has evolved throughout history. So, Wood described the DAR as those Tory girls and people who are trying to set up an aristocracy of birth in a republic. So 5 years later, Wood painted Daughters of Revolution, which he described as his only satire. He emphasized the contrast of three-aged women in fade dresses framed against a heroic painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. No doubt he knew that it was painted by a German painter in Germany. This paint is an 1851 oil-on-canvas painting by the German artist Emanuel Gottlieb Lutz. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Lucas. And thank you for watching A Week an Artist, and see you next week.